Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, KRISTIAN, Janisch, and the host of the Schmoedown Rundown, Gilmore. Schmoedown fans, welcome to the Schmoedown Rundown, the official show for the movie trivia Schmoedown. My name is Gilmore, but you might know me by another name. You might know me as, I had trouble there, The Boat. Hashtag best of all time, hashtag Brad's Beans are true, hashtag boat life, hashtag I'm on a boat. I am back here in the wonderful studios here in Houston, Texas, aka Friendswood, Texas, off of a wonderful, wonderful trip to Las Vegas. Y'all saw me though last week. If you tuned into the entire show, here's what's great about Chris Clark. I was live on Radio Row in Las Vegas, Nevada for the Pacquiao-Manny Thurman for the Manny Pacquiao-Keith Thurman fight at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Went out there for ESPN to cover it, and I was on Radio Row. I had a small little break, a very short break, because we were busy when we were out there. We were at the weigh-ins, we were at the Radio Row doing our radio show live, the Hall of Fame. We, as Booker T and I. And I had a break. And I said, you know what? I know I'm not going to be on the rundown this week, but I have a break. So let me go in. Let me do a quick little video. Talk about Paul Oyama becoming the Movie Trivia Schmoedown champion of the world, which is crazy still. 5-0 rookie. He's the champ. Beat Dan Murrell, one of the greatest of all time. Paul Oyama quickly solidifying himself as one of the great players the game has ever seen. I mean, we have to see the defense. Right? I mean, that's always been my biggest thing. We have to see the defense of the championship. But I was able to do that little quick video about it. Send it over to Chris Clark. Thought it'd probably be interspersed in the episode somewhere. And it turns out it was like a post-credit scene. So we had our Marvel Cinematic Universe type thing going on last week with my post-credit scene breaking down Paul Oyama. So if you saw it or you heard it, shout out to you. If you didn't, I'm not repeating it. You should go back and watch last week's episode of The Rundown. But you might be asking, wait, hold on, Brad Gilmore. You were here, but where is Frank Janisch? Frank Janisch and I actually have not had really any communication or very little communication in the past 2 weeks. Like I said, last week I was out in Vegas. I came back this week. I had a crazy radio show schedule, and now I'm here to do this. I just came fresh from the Rockets press conference introducing Russell Westbrook to the team, and now Frank Janisch is out in, what I'm hearing is he is in Hawaii. I don't know if he and Paul Oyama are kicking it and they're hanging out over there in Kauai or on the Big Island. But Frank Janisch is out in Hawaii. I actually have no idea why he's there. I'm assuming it's a vacation. I think he's going to be there quite a while. I believe Frank Janisch is even going to be out next week as well. But we're going to hear from Frank. At least that's what I've been led to believe. We're going to hear from Frank Janisch on the show. He's got many thoughts, opinions, and ideas regarding what was a hellacious week in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, because we had the live event go down in San Diego, California, at the Comic-Con. You had two Intergeekdom matches. You had the Intergeekdom Championship of the World, Mike Kalinowski going against the defending champion, Rachel the Crusher Cushing. And then you had Kevin Smets still reeling off of a big loss to Mike Kalinowski at the Collision, going against Adam Lavick in an undercard match. Now, when I talked to KRISTIAN, or it may have not been to KRISTIAN, maybe it was to Frank. I talked to Frank about this Adam Lavick, Kevin Smets match and what I thought was going to happen. Sure, after you get rocked, right, and you lose, and it's your first big loss, your first loss if you're Kevin Smets, your first really, loss where you can taste it, and he did it on one of the biggest brain farts in Movie Trivia Schmoedown history. I've given John Roca a lot of crap for Fruit of the Looms, which is still, I think, the worst answer in Movie Trivia Schmoedown history. But Clark Wolf, Southside with you, Southside with me. There's been some that have just where you thought it should have been a question you got, and it was just a small faux pas. Kevin Smets did that with Don't Tell Harry / don't tell Peter. And you never know if somebody's going to ever fully recover from that, you know? We've seen great fighters, in MMA and boxing, where they take a big loss. You could take Manny Pacquiao when he got knocked out cold. You're wondering, can Manny come back and be the same fighter after you get knocked out like that, after such a devastating loss? And Manny Pacquiao proved that he could. But then you have a guy, let's go to MMA, a guy like Francis Ngannou, who's supposed to be the next big heavyweight monster. And you wonder, okay, well, can Francis Ngannou, he loses to Stipe Miocic for the championship. Can he come back after such a high-profile loss? And he comes back against Derek the Beast Lewis, has one of the worst showings ever in the UFC, and he was on a track to not be successful. Now, since he's been able to get back on the right track, that's besides the point. My point is there's a question mark against Kevin Smets. Now let's look at Adam Lavick. Adam Lavick has been around the league for, the Inner Geekdom League, I guess for a little over a year now. He was there last season. He's here this season. And you see this a lot in pro sports. You see a guy who is very good, at times can be great, but he's more in the good to very good category, has a great knowledge base, or has great inherent talents. But if he goes against a guy who's a B-level fighter or a B-level competitor or a C-level or a D-level competitor, he's going to win almost every time. But when you have a guy who goes up against a level A, an A fighter, someone who's championship caliber, you tend to see they don't perform as well. And I believe Adam Lavick, and I'm not saying that he's not a good competitor, I just think that when he fights somebody who's an A-level fighter, an A-level competitor, Adam Lavick isn't going to be able to get the job done. And I like Adam, but Kevin Smets is an A-level fighter. I mean, we saw him be an A-level fighter in his match against Mike Kalinowski, and his many matches that we've seen him go, against Hector Navarro, who's a former champion. We know that Kevin Smets comes to play. Knockouts, almost perfect games played from Kevin Smets in Inner Geekdom, which is very hard to do. We know that this guy can bring it. Kevin Smets was working on a very boat-like career for himself in Inner Geekdom division. So I thought when these two would match up, it would be probably, solid there for maybe the first round. And then in round 2, I thought Kevin Smets would just go ahead and pick up a quick victory. Now, I did not expect it to go the way it did. Kevin Smets was looking to come back and to make a statement. And that's exactly what Kevin Smets did. I could break down this match more analytically if I had Frank Janisch here. We could talk more round by round stuff. But the match ends 21-5. Why don't y'all let that sink in for you a second? 21-5. Not 21-15. Not 12-5, 21-5. That is an absolute homicide of a match. Somebody call the police. I gotta report a murder. I don't want to rub it in to Adam Lavick, but brother, there's this old term in wrestling. I'm sure most of the Schmoedown guys and gals out there who watch this show and watch the Schmoedown, y'all know the lingo now. There's an old saying of a squash match. And I think that, Adam Lavick might have been a bit of a squash match. I don't think this is the end of Adam Lavick or anything like that, but I just think that on a big stage like this, for you to lose in such a devastating fashion, he better be down the rankings. Ben Askren was number 5 in the welterweight division in the UFC, and then he dropped all the way to 10 after a devastating knockout by Jorge Masvidal. I think this is on some of the similar wavelength here. 5 points, 5 seconds, right? It's the same thing. And I think that Kevin Smets went out there and did exactly what he wanted to do, and that was to make a statement, and a powerful statement at that. Kevin Smets said, hey, I know there were a lot of talkers, a lot of people yapping, that maybe I didn't deserve it, maybe I didn't belong, maybe it was all hype, or maybe, and here's the thing, I kind of questioned some of the people he went against Kevin Smets on his way up. I thought Mike Kalinowski still has been the biggest competition Kevin Smets has had. But to say the guy doesn't deserve to be in the league, or to say that, and I know not people are saying that, but to say that he doesn't deserve to be talked about in the upper echelon of the Intergeekdom division after one loss, this was Kevin Smets saying, F y'all, I'm still the guy. And I still think that he is. I still think Kevin Smets is the guy to beat. If it wasn't for one name, if it wasn't for Peter and Harry, swap them out, Kevin Smets would be playing for the championship. And you know what? He might be the champion as we're speaking right now. So for any doubters of Mr. Kevin Smets, the Smasher, for any doubters of Kaiser, boy, has Kaiser had a good couple weeks. They came to San Diego and they said, look, that whole belt thing, the championship match should have me in it. And Mike, it's cute and all that you're going on this run and that you're emotional about it. And we want to see you do well, brother. But just know, whoever wins that match after me, I just made a statement. I made a big statement that y'all are in my crosshairs. And Kevin Smets now needs to be back right up. I mean, his next match or two needs to be back into title contention, number one contention. Or maybe the next match needs to be for the number one contender, and I think I know who his opponent could be. But let's see what the numbers, man. The guy, the man, the myth, the legend, the man who's in Hawaii right now with Paulo Yama, kissing that Schmoedown Singles Championship and taking selfies with it. Let's go to Frank Janisch.
What's going on, everyone? Frank here in San Francisco, Alcatraz right behind me, and I couldn't make a full appearance on the rundown this week, so I'm going to take a little time here to discuss Kevin Smets and Adam Lavick. That was, despite it not being a number one contenders match, Kevin came to play, and he showed what he'd been working on in the short time between his match with Kalinowski and now here Lavick, and I thought he displayed exactly what he was trying to accomplish during his training. You could see him trying to play the game better. He knows the knowledge is there, but he tried to play the game a lot better. So it was interesting to see him put that to work, and so we'll see what comes of it. But now let's talk about Kalinowski and Rachel Cushing. That match, was obviously a barn burner, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go. We talked about it that it could go either way, and it went Mike's way. So we'll see what he can do to defend it against Mara, possibly. Maybe Jason Im comes back. I don't know, but whoever might be up next points towards Kevin Smets, and so a naked guy just rode a bike right down that guy. Anyways, that's San Francisco for you. When we talk about Kalinowski going forward, I mean, it's a well-earned victory, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see what he does in the future for it, because, look, I've been a little critical of him, but not of his ability. But obviously I was rooting for Rachel. Didn't come out on top, so that's unfortunate. But there's exciting things happening nonetheless in the division, so I'm excited to see what happens with that. And I think that's gonna do it for my little mini recap here of what happened in San Diego at Comic-Con. So I'll see you guys next week.
The main event was for the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Intergeekdom Championship, a championship belt, which is probably my favorite looking title in the league. It has a little Back to the Future stuff on it, like it's behind me, and I absolutely love it, and I love the Intergeekdom division. Sometimes I feel like it's the only division I could ever compete in, and then when I see stuff like what we saw last Saturday in San Diego, I realize that I can't do it at all. But that's not the point. The point is to talk about Rachel the Crusher Cushing, who Frank Janisch has touted as the greatest Intergeekdom player of all time, and I said she was in the conversation. I didn't think that we could just put a bow on it, but I definitely thought that she was in the conversation. Well, she had a defense against Mike Kalinowski, someone who she has beaten before, and sometimes pretty convincingly. before. She had a match against Mike in San Diego for the championship. I'm going to be honest with you. I picked Mike Kalinowski to win this match. I think most of you know that. Most of you knew that I was picking Mike for this contest. But I wasn't confident in that. I thought that, he had the ability to do so. I don't think anyone was doubting that. And I also think that Mike Kalinowski has been on one of the great runs in the movie trivia Schmoedown. Because you got to think Mike was a guy who I think he came in and he was like, all right, I'm Mike Kalinowski. I got guns a-blazing. I know a lot of things about the DC universe. I know a lot about the Marvel universe. I mean, I think I'm going to go with what I got. I'm going to go with my gut on a lot of this stuff, and I'm going to pull out a victory every time. And then he realized it wasn't that easy. It wasn't even close to being that easy. Mike Kalinowski realized this. And what happened with Mike was he went back to the doldrums of the Kalinowski Manor. He went in the cow cave, and he took the cape and cowl off, and he sat in front of the big computer monitor and went typing away, researching. And he became a better player than when he entered, which at times you can do. We see it in professional sports. Michael Jordan was a great player. When he entered, he became better. James Harden, good player when he entered, became a great player, and then an MVP. And now he's kind of hit his prime. And I think that that's what we're seeing with Mike Kalinowski. We are seeing Mike Kalinowski in his prime. Now let's look at Rachel Cushing, though. Rachel Cushing, somebody who came in, she was great when she started, got better, got even better, won the Intergeekdom Championship against Mike Kalinowski at the Schmoedown Throwdown, and then we saw her win the team championships with Clark Wolf as a part of the Shire Wolves. And then they lost those titles to the Odd Couple, and then guess what happened? They won them back. She's phenomenal, and she competed for the singles championship against Sam Levine. This is a woman who's been dominant in all three divisions of the movie trivia Schmoedown, and I guarantee you if she ever threw her name into the hat in the Star Wars division, she'd give even Alex Damon a run for his money. I don't know if she'd win, but she'd give him a run for his money because not only does she have a great knowledge base, she is one of the best, she's probably the most knowledgeable player of all time. I mean, just from what we've seen from her, she is probably the most knowledgeable player in the history of the movie trivia Schmoedown. But the question really isn't, is she great? The question really isn't, is she knowledgeable? The question is, has she been able to maintain that training regimen and sustain her reign on top? It's hard for any superstar. It's hard for any celebrity. It's hard for a movie star. It's hard for a rapper. It's hard for a star athlete. We all hit our primes. You can get better after you come in, but we eventually all hit our prime. And then once you hit your prime, it's how long can I hold on to it? And the thing about the movie trivia Schmoedown is it's so demanding. It's a 12-month-a-year sport. It's not like the NBA. It's not like the NFL. It's not like Major League Baseball where you have this big off season where you can, look at stuff, kind of take some time to unplug and relax. It's a 12-month-a-year game. And guess what? You're never off the clock. Even when you're not competing, even when you don't have a pending championship match coming up, these players and competitors are working at getting better. And how do they do that? How do they work and play and get better? By studying. And they study all the time, either consciously or subconsciously. I'm sure many players' movie-watching habits have completely changed for the rest of their lives. It's like for me, when you watch wrestling as a kid, you think of it one way. When you start to work in wrestling, you think of it a completely different way. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like seeing a relative naked, or something like that. I don't know. Or if you see like I don't know, like the way of, I don't know. I can't think of a better one. It's like seeing somebody naked. All right. Once you see somebody naked, you can always picture them naked, right? Right? And anytime you want. And you can't take it back. Once you've seen it, it's done. And I think that the movie Trivia Schmoedown is like seeing somebody naked. Once you are studying a certain way by looking at these movies and trying to say, oh, you know what? I bet Chris Galiski I bet she's going to write a question about that. Oh, I would write about this. Oh, look, the apartment number, on their number is 5A. Okay, let me write that down. Let me remember that. Once you start building that muscle, you can never get away from it. So I say all that to say, how long can you sustain your prime? And Rachel Cushing, because the grind is so demanding, because there's so many matches in so many different divisions, is because she's been on top essentially since she came in with Nerds Watch. Essentially, she's been earmarked for greatness since she came in with Nerds Watch. Since that happened, it's almost expected that she's going to slow down a little bit and not be as sharp as she once was, just because of the sheer amount of matches she's playing and in the number of divisions she's playing them in. She cannot sustain that run in her prime because of the demand on her. And you throw in something that she's self-admittedly been, not afraid of, but has lacked in live events, and she's not a performer. That's what we forget. A lot of these people who come in, even Clark Wolf, her teammate, Christian Harloff, Mark Ellis, Ken Knapsack, Mike Kalinowski, Roxy Stryer, Kaiser. The list goes on and on of all the people who had some sort of performance background before entering the league. Rachel did not. And she has self-admittedly been like, man, these live crowds kind of throw me a little bit. And I can understand why. I was sitting in a press conference earlier today, like I said, with Russell Westbrook. And I've met countless number of celebrities. I've done plenty of interviews. I've been involved in press conferences before. And even there, in front of everybody, knowing that it's streaming live on ESPN, you got other people in the press box with you. You start saying, "Oh man, I don't know. Is this a good question? Should I ask that?" And then somebody answers. They ask the question that you wanted to ask, and then you're like, "Okay, what's another good question?" And then you're trying to find the microphone. There's so many elements going on in the live event structure that you can get rattled really easily. And I don't know how much Rachel was rattled, but I think that Rachel, and rightfully so, has nothing left to prove. And when you feel like you have nothing left to prove, you're going to be a bit more lax. You're not going to be as on edge. You're not going to have that hunger in your belly or that desire to continue this run on top. They say it, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and Rachel Cushing's head has been the heaviest in the movie Trivia Schmoedown for the last 2 seasons. Think about it. It's like when LeBron came out of the draft. You're drafted number 1. People are already calling you the king, and you haven't even really played a game yet. People are saying you're the chosen one. You're the heir apparent to Michael Jordan. You know how much pressure that is? And how much you have to live up to? Look at Zion Williamson right now. You know how much pressure he has on him to perform in New Orleans? More than we can ever imagine. And that's what Rachel has had to deal with. And now Mike kind of reaps the benefits of that. Not saying there wasn't pressure on Mike, because there was tremendous pressure. But he doesn't have the pressure of being called the greatest player of all time like my co-host Frank Janisch does all the time with Rachel Cushing. Because of that, Mike can play a little bit more lax, but he probably also knew this was his last opportunity at the championship. Unless he went on another phenomenal run, this would probably be it for him. So let's look at it here a little bit. Actually, I'm going to throw it back to Frank Janisch. Frank, we're going to hear Frank Janisch's take on this, and then I'll come back with mine. So we'll be right back with more Rundown. As far as my thoughts on the Rachel Cushing, Mike Kalinowski match, you just heard from Frank Janisch. This is what I think. When Rachel had that early lead against Mike, the 2-point lead after round 1, and then Mike gets up to go into round 2, and Mike gets Middle Earth. Sometimes there's certain spins of the wheel that land on, and then you say, well, you know what? I think that we can go home early tonight because it's going to be a bit of a long night. But Mike Kalinowski doing as well as he did in his round with Middle Earth, I got to say I was very impressed by his ability to see a category that was going to be tough for him, but stay in there. And then for him to be down 18-15, it's impressive that he was able to come back from that. And then to have the 3-point swing in round 3 open Mike Kalinowski up to win the entire thing. And then when the speed round came, which we've seen be a problem for Rachel Cushing in the past, for the speed round to come and Mike dominate. For Mike to dominate the way that he did, I just thought that, okay, after the speed round, I saw the whole momentum of the match changed. And really, during both of their encounters, if you think about the throwdown, Mike was down by something like 8 points and was able to come back and then send it into overtime. Mike Kalinowski, we need to really have this conversation of him being in the top 3 Inner Geekdom players of all time. I think it's him, I think it's Inman, and I think it's Rachel. I think Smets is making a case, but he's still new. Mike to be down by those 3 points, which could be everything in a championship match like this, swing it back, and then dominate the speed round, and then really have the match in his right where he wanted it going into the final round. Mike Kalinowski played a phenomenal game. Rachel did too, but Mike Kalinowski played a phenomenal game. And you saw, just as you did in his match against Kevin Smets, as he started to realize that he was going to win the championship back, he had to fight back tears. He did. He had to fight back emotion. And it's so awesome to see Mike Kalinowski. And it's going to make him really hard to be a heel because he won the championship. He hugs Rachel Cushing. He is, he's very magnanimous in his win and humble. And it's going to be hard to hate him. But here's the thing. After the match, Mike's standing there, and then out wanders Mara Kanopic. Mara Kanopic, who had some slander from Frank Janisch, let's be honest. She comes out and kind of is like, hey, I'm back, and I'd kind of like a rematch, Because remember, after she lost to Spectacular last year, we did not see from Mara Kanopic at all. I saw Mara at the New York live event and then the Houston live event, but she wasn't there for anything else except for Dan Murrell. And she came out on this one, made her return to the league, and she's back. And I really like that she's back. And I don't think that she's like Frank Janisch said. I think that she was realer than real deal Holyfield, as the great Snoop Dogg once said. And I think that this is my pitch here. I don't think that she should get the automatic rematch against Mike Kalinowski. She got to be around a little bit longer. She got to prove that she still got it. She still got it. And I haven't seen it yet. So this is my solution. Now, this could have been announced and I completely missed it because, like I said, I was in Las Vegas last week. I did 6 shows in a row for ESPN, covered the Russell Westbrook conference. I'm an important person, so I might have missed this. But I would like to see Kevin Smets versus Mara Kanopic for the number 1 contendership. I think that that's what we need to do. Kevin Smets versus Mara Kanopic. Winner gets Mike Kalinowski. I just don't see any other way of doing it. I don't want to Inner Geekdom 5-way. I don't want another tournament. Let's make this easy. If Rachel is going to focus more on teams or go back into singles, or whatever it is that her path, and if she wants to be back in Inner Geekdom, make it a triple threat. Whatever the path is for Rachel, I don't know. I think that right now, go focus on the Shire Wolves. You're the champions. We'll see what happens. But if we take Rachel out of the picture completely, and I'm left with everyone that we've already seen in the Intergeekdom division, I'm saying Kevin Smets, Mark Konopik, number one contender match for Mike Kalinowski at the Collision. Mike doesn't need to defend it here before that, and maybe he will. I'm just saying, if I'm the booker, I got my booking hat on, I got my pencil, I'm writing Mark Konopik, Kevin Smets, maybe at a live event. You know, you got Arizona coming up, you got Orlando coming up. Those were announced. For the number one contendership for the Intergeekdom Championship, and then at the Spectacular, boom. That's what I think should happen. That's just what I think. What do you think? I don't know. But Mark Konopik back in the Intergeekdom division is a great, great move. It's a great coup by Christian Harloff and Robert Meyer Burnett and Sam Levine and MFI, whoever the hell's in charge. It's a great coup to have her back in Intergeekdom because I think that she's needed right now. I think that her in the mix adds another level and another layer to that Intergeekdom division. And who knows, maybe she could win the championship back again, and then maybe Dan Murrell throws his name in the Intergeekdom hat, which I would still love to see. So you don't know what's going to happen here in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. That's what makes it so interesting. That's why we watch every single week. But now next week, I think Frank Janisch is going to be out again. I'm going to make arrangements to have a special guest co-host so we can have a little bit meatier discussion. And it's not just me talking to myself, talking to you for an hour or so and intermittent clips of Frank Janisch. Shout out to Chris Clark, our super producer. You can follow him at Chris Clark 8788. Those numbers mean nothing. At FrankieJ29. At Brad Gilmore on all social media. We're going to be back next week. A little meatier episode of the Schmoedown Rundown. Congratulations to Mike Kalinowski. Well-deserved. I want to have comments from the champ next week. And shout out to Kevin Smets. Let's go with it. Smets, Konopik, number one contendership. Let's make a deal, Harloff. Let's do it. Let's do it now. 'Cause I do.